Now, with me on the line today is our college review and preview show. With me on the line is Joel from the bullgator.com. And Joel, how you doing today?
Good, Mike, good.
And we have another special guest. First time on the big show with the sports heavyweights is Ryan from FiresteveAdazio.com. How are you, Ryan?
Good. How's it going, guys?
Excellent. Now, I do want to back up a little bit, and maybe somebody's listening and doesn't know who Steve Adazio is. That's the offensive coordinator for the University of Florida. And your site caught my eye. I was looking at it, and for as much as I wanted to hate your site when I saw the name, I kind of agree with you on a lot of things you have to say. First of all, tell me about the idea behind this site. Give me a little brief history.
Well, a lot of people come to the site, especially now after 3 losses, and they think it's some big reactionary thing, and that's kind of part of the reason I started it. Well, the first reason was really, me and my friends were around talking, watching Florida games for the last couple of years, and we're talking to each other. We're like, we can't be the only ones who see the problems, with the play calling and that kind of stuff, because it wasn't really anything mentioned until recently. So, I wanted kind of to get that out there, but then also, I knew that whether I started it or someone else started it, this was going to come up eventually, this site. And I didn't want it to be just, somebody raging like our offense thinks, fire the offensive coordinator. So, I wanted to start it and actually put good content out there, make a point, actually break down the games, break down what I thought was going wrong. So, it wasn't just some page out there. It was, just somebody upset about losing, basically. So if you read through the site, you'll see there's some pretty good content on there. So that's basically where the idea came from.
Well, my first question to you would be, first of all, you had somebody that didn't agree with you at the beginning of the year. The Gainesville Sun columnist Pat Dooley says early in the year, with Adazio as coordinator, Florida was 14-1, and this is a quote. This is right after the Miami-Ohio game. And he went on. He said, "Let's see what happens the rest of the way. Off the ledge, people. Like I've said a million times, nobody fans." And I thought it was very cool that you asked him, "Okay, what do we do now? What do you say now, Dooley?" And I thought that was very cool for you to just take your time with the response to that, and then hit him right between the eyes with it. Okay. Now.
Yeah, and I actually got a lot of comments like that when I first started the site because we were 14-1 with Adazio as our coach, but we were 14-1 because we played 14 of those games with the top defense in the country and, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time in college football. And, a win is a win, but a win's not always a win when it's predictive of future losses. 26 yards of total offense through 3 quarters against Miami. That's, historically bad. We had a lot of turnover on players, but, this is college football. Everybody's only eligible for 4 years. Most guys are only starting for 2 or 3. 26 yards against Miami, Ohio. I can't ever think of a team putting 26 yards of total offense through 3 quarters. A BCS team against a non-BCS team.
Right. Now with us today as well as Joel from the bullgator.com, and Joel, got to check out your site, and he's known about your site for a little while now as well. Joel, any comments on the Fire Steve Adazio site?
Well, I think Ryan hit the nail on the head, and one of the great things about the site is it's not a reactionary site. There's another site service of naming the address, but it has to do with the head coach, and really all it says is 3 straight losses, the guy doesn't care anymore, get rid of him. Well, that's not what I've read at FiresteveAdazio.com, and what Ryan's putting together is you're going to have those fans that aren't the fans that get on the radio like we do and talk about it, that don't look into the analytics of how the games go as much as we do. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with the casual Gator fan or the casual football fan. But the casual fan is also going to see something like that and, like Ryan said, react and say, but we're 14-1 since he became the offensive coordinator. But we're 15-1 since he became the offensive coordinator. Well, what Ryan's site does is it goes deeper into what's actually going on. He's talking about zone block, the offense with the different quarterbacks. I saw a great stat on there today. In the last Florida in their SEC games over the last 2 years has only gone over 400 yards of total offense twice, and both those times were against Kentucky. That's just a stat that you throw out there, and you're like, well, wait a minute, 400 yards? And then you look to the Sugar Bowl last year when the Gators put up 659.
Right.
So this team is capable of doing it, and even if you remove Tebow from the equation, you remove Percy Harvin from the equation, who was around before Adazio became the offensive coordinator, you remove these guys and these key pieces, you're still reloading. It's the Florida Gators.
Right.
USC reloads. Texas reloads.
Right.
This team reloads. So there's a problem. It's more than us just not liking Steve Adazio. He's not suited in the position that he's in. And I think if you actually were to read what Ryan's putting out there, it's intelligent, thought-out stuff, and he's got a great point.
Now, one of the other interesting things, Ryan, that I saw on your site was when your article about the recruits' fault, Adazio's play calling from October goes on to say some people have questioned whether or not our offensive talent is really as good as we think it is. But does anyone here believe our offensive talent is 11th in the SEC and 96th in the nation? Does anyone actually believe that we have less offensive talent than Vanderbilt, Iowa State, Rutgers? And I think that says it all in a nutshell to me, that it's not necessarily the talent, it's the direction. And who do you fault in the direction but the leader? And how do you fault Meyer? I think you got to fault the offensive coordinator first. Now, if we drag our feet with this and we don't address the situation, then I think you can point the blame at Meyer. Is that the way you feel, Ryan?
Yeah. And you kind of mentioned there something else I wanted to touch on. You mentioned that was before the Mississippi State game. And, like I said, this has been up since the beginning of the year. And, all these problems that I've been pointing out are the same problems. They were there then, and they're there now. The difference is we're playing better teams now. None of it's improved. A lot of it was covered up early on because, our defense was setting us up in good field position, even scoring for us at times. Same thing with the special teams. So you see this game against Mississippi State, and you're like, wow, 7 points. But really, that's what our offense has been all year. We've just had some bonus drives where we started inside the 20. I mean, the LSU game, 2 of our scores, we started inside the 20, and then a kickoff return for a touchdown. Dan Mullen had all year that, the Florida offense isn't going to go the length of the field on their own very often. And if you just, he just basically decided we're not even going to throw the ball in the second half. We don't think they can score 10 points if we don't turn it over. And, he was absolutely right.
All right, if you're just joining us, you're listening to Big Show with the Sports Heavyweights. I'm Gator Mike. Of course, Tuesdays and Wednesdays are college review and preview days. Right now we're talking with Joel from thebullgator.com and Ryan from Fire Steve Adazio. Is you're not a Gator fan. That's the offensive coordinator for the Florida Gators. And Ryan, on your humorous, I think it was yesterday, you have in the disrespected and beaten down column, you have a picture of Adazio on the sideline, and you have it broken down with the offensive line should be here and Brantley should be here. And none of those guys are even in the picture. And you're absolutely right. Whenever I've seen an offensive coordinator who works the sideline as opposed to up top, he's got those key guys around him, and he's ready for direction, to give direction. He knows what his next move is before the move has to be made. I mean, it just appears, and maybe I'm wrong, but I've always been taught when it walks like a duck, looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. This guy doesn't even put out the air that he's capable of handling the position of a major college program offensive coordinator. Is that fair to say, Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, one of my readers actually after the LSU game sent in a video that he took. He was sitting right behind the Gator bench. This was after the opening drive of the second half against LSU where we had 2nd and goal from the 1. And, once again, we came all the false start, came away with no points after being on the 1-yard line yet again. So, you think your coach is going to be fired up about that, but he took a video after they came off the field on that drive. He's sitting on the sideline flipping through some papers. The offensive line's just kind of standing around. Brantley's nowhere in the picture. I don't know about the rest of you. I've never seen Adazio talk to Brantley during a football game. And that seems like a pretty big disconnect to me if your offensive coordinator isn't even talking to your quarterback. It's not like he's even trying to coach people at the state game. That picture that I took there was at the end of the first half after Brantley had been sacked to end another drive. He looked like he didn't know what to do. And, we can see that on the field as well.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he's feeling the heat. Maybe he is feeling some pressure, but that's not the way to handle it. And again, I am not qualified as a coach, or, in D1 football or FBS football at all. But again, just from other things I've seen, whether it be the NFL or major college programs, or even when I coached a Pee Wee football program years ago, if I had to get in somebody's face, I got in their face. If I had to make a point, I made sure my point was loud and clear. Now, I know times have changed, and you can't go, pulling old school Ohio State stuff where you punch somebody and things like that on the sideline. But at the same time, we got to do something here. Now, Joel, have you noticed the same things from Adazio, that even the body language suggests, as Ryan said, defeat and not, maybe he's not one of, what are we doing if we're not producing on the field and we don't have a.
Well, I think what's most interesting about it is this is a guy that's on the sideline. And when you hear offensive coordinators decide to change it up and come out of the booth and come on the sideline, they usually do it because they want to be there with their players. They want to be there with a new quarterback or a struggling guy, and they want to be there with the team for a game or two to make sure the team's got its head on his shoulders and is doing the right thing and doing what they're supposed to be doing. Wadazio's been on the sideline all the time, and he's just a body there. I mean, he might as well be carrying Urban Meyer's headphones. He's not getting excited. You look at fans at home who are screaming at the TV, a block's missed, and a fan gets off their couch and screams at the television, or in the stands is screaming, and you think this guy should get in these players' faces. If Pouncey misses a block, Pouncey's not going to be upset and go to his room at night and cry himself to sleep if his offensive coordinator gets in his face. He wants to be coached like that. Brantley needs someone to pull him over on the sidelines and say, look, you've got to make this throw or you've got to make this read. Let's get it next time. He's just letting these guys walk right by him as he just stares out in the field. If you're going to be an offensive coordinator on the field, sometimes Division I football, I know like youth, but get these guys motivated to play. They don't want to be passively coached. I'm sure they don't want to be yelled at either, but they need some kind of motivation. He's just not giving it to them. He either needs to be gone or get up to the booth.
Sure, absolutely. And I'm looking at your site here, Ryan, firesteveadazio.com, and I just got a quick text from a listener here, and I want to be clear. I spoke yesterday about the bandwagon jumpers and the people getting off the Gator bandwagon because now they've lost a couple games, and the fire this coach and the fire that coach site, and I kind of blasted the whole idea. My thought was the firing of the head coach site. As I opened up your site and jumped into it more, I really learned a lot. Now we have a little less than 2 minutes before the break, Ryan. I'm looking at one of your pages, could be more successful. And I got to tell you, I agree with all of it. I mean, you're right on point with this stuff. I mean, and this was just really for the Alabama game, but you've laid it out for him. He's got to play to maintain balance and make adjustments. Don't force demps, and Burton must pass occasionally when he's on the field. And you've told him, you've given him a blueprint on how to do this. And we're not seeing
right.
it.
Even weeks before that,